time to hit the road. Rerouting. Caution, please mind the speed limit.
All right, good morning, everyone. Happy Patrick's Day. This is John Tappan of Western Star 5700 XE. This is a special ride for those who served in the military, beginning with Texas. And it's going to be for Florida Oranges. And it's going to be all day in this truck. And I don't know if it's going to be a noise. This is actually used in
Keep
almost
right,
300,000 miles.
Turn right.
And
Turn right.
kind of with the a little bit of brake noise. So I apologize. So let's go for a ride, everyone. So
Keep right, and then turn right.
that way,
Turn right.
and so I get it at the Dollar General. So let's
Here
get
we are.
the first
Safety sign.
item and go for a ride.
Ready to roll. Drive safe. Turn left. Keep left, and then turn left. Turn left. I'll find a new route. Recomputing. Keep right, and then turn right. Turn right. Exit right. Get ready to turn left. Turn left.
NPR comes from the Kresge Foundation with Pathbreakers, a podcast about transforming communities through innovation. From revolutionizing higher education to supporting artists who are driving change, Pathbreakers is available on podcast platforms.
11th day of November 2025. I'm Angela Pocherba. So glad you can join us. We're waiting and watching to see if the federal government shutdown will really end. It can't happen soon enough for the federal workers who have not been paid for more than a month, or the millions of Americans who depend on SNAP food benefits to feed their families. They're now cut off. Or those stuck at airports as thousands of flights are canceled or delayed. We're just a little over 2 weeks away from Thanksgiving. Families travel to be together and enjoy a holiday meal. With that in doubt for so many, there's pressure and, yes, hope Congress will take action to reopen the federal government. For more on the developments last night in the U.S. Senate and what to expect from the House later this week, we're joined by Sean Theriault, a political science professor at the University of Texas at Austin. Professor, welcome back.
Thanks for having me on.
So where do things stand now? Last night we saw a bill pass the Senate to reopen the government on a 60-40 vote. 8 Democratic lawmakers broke with their party to allow the bill to pass. What did they say about why they did that?
So, right, there were lots of negotiations that were happening, trying to get some last-minute deals to protect, especially federal workers, right? A lot of the deal-making came down to Tim Kaine in Virginia, who, of course, has lots of federal employees in his state. And so he was making sure that they would get the back pay from this shutdown, that a lot of the layoffs and firings that happened during the shutdown would be reversed. So he was doing some last-minute deal-making, and eventually he got enough commitments from some of the Republican senators that he felt comfortable going ahead with the deal.
Give us some specifics. Does the Senate bill maintain funding at previous levels or something else?
Yeah, so it's something else and the same levels. So what part of the deal is that they are going to pass 3 different appropriation bills, which means they will be funded now until the next fiscal year, right? So all the way until October of next year. However, there are some areas of appropriations that are still going to be funded at the same level, and this will go into January. So it could be back in the same situation, but it'll be a little bit different because one of the appropriations bill that's going to be funded is agriculture, and that's where those SNAP benefits come from. And so we won't have to worry about the SNAP benefits being cut again during another shutdown if that were to happen in January.
Well, now this move in the Senate has sparked some ire within the Democratic Party. What are we hearing from party leadership?
Yeah, so party leadership was always informed of the negotiations, but they were never given the green light from leadership to go forward with this. It turns out that senators are independently elected from their individual states, and so they don't need the leadership's approval to strike some type of bargain. And so at the end of the day, I think that Chuck Schumer, primarily in the Senate, tried to do what he could to keep his Democratic caucus together. But in the end, those constituent polls of federal workers and SNAP benefits and some of the other hardships that the constituents were starting to face as a consequence of the shutdown were just too much. And so enough senators broke ranks and voted with the Republicans.
So what's the timeline going forward, and when is the House expected to vote? And again, how likely is this deal to pass the House?
Yeah, that's right. So today is Veterans Day, and so, of course, the federal government is shut down, although it seems like there's going to be a Rules Committee hearing which is going to set up debate then for tomorrow in the House of Representatives. And the Speaker thinks that he has enough votes. There are enough Republicans right now who are expressing some doubt, but I think in the end, either the push of Donald Trump, the arm twisting that the president so frequently does, could push them over the line. I also think they might pick up some Democratic votes. So it might not be that they only need to rely upon Democratic votes. And we expect that vote to take place on Wednesday.
So you talked about some of the hardships, of course, the people not getting their SNAP benefits, and of course others who are trying to catch flights, not being able to, flights are canceled. So what are you watching for as things move forward and this pressure builds?
Yeah, what's interesting is we don't know what would have happened had these Democrats not caved into the Republicans. Right now, they're getting lots of pushback, not only from leadership, but also from some of their more liberal constituents who want to see fight against Trump. But at the end of the day, there was no exit strategy for them. The people that were most hurt by this were people who were on SNAP benefits and federal employees. The Democratic Party is much more sensitive to those concerns than the Republican Party is. So I'm not sure that the pressure was ever going to ramp up so much that the Republicans would be caving first, because those aren't natural allies of the Republican coalition. What we'd expect to see, right, the House presumably is going to pass this bill tomorrow. And then I think by the weekend, and certainly I think by the time we get to next week, the first day of the work week, next Monday, I think that things will basically be back to normal then.
And anything else that could throw a wrench into this at the last minute?
Oh gosh, with Donald Trump in the White House and his fingers on his phone, I am not at all certain that this get passed, but it seems as though the president has passed along enough signals that he's okay with this deal. And I think that certainly the Senate Republicans have put a lot of their credibility on the line. And so I think for them to pull the plug on this at this point would make it look like the Republicans truly are the ones that should be blamed for this shutdown. So I would be really surprised if there's anything that blows up the deal at this point.
We've been speaking to Sean Theriault, a political science professor at the University of Texas at Austin. Professor, thank you for being here.
My pleasure.
That his plan to lower property taxes could help him become the longest-serving governor in the state. I'm Laura Rice. Abbott kicked off his third re-election campaign for governor over the weekend, where he announced his new plan for lowering property taxes. Property taxes primarily affect local budgets, school districts, public safety, that sort of thing. So how does he plan to provide property tax relief and still leave enough money in the local coffers for those services? Gromer Jeffers has been digging into this for the Dallas Morning News. Gromer, always great to have you on the Texas Standard.
Laura, it is great to be with you.
Well, Abbott just released a 6-point plan. What are some of his big ideas?
Well, it's really aggressive, and most of the items are aimed at reining in the ability of local jurisdictions to sort of raise property taxes the way they want to. And so the big one is giving voters the ability to actually abolish property taxes from school districts. That would have to come via constitutional amendment, which means the legislature would have to put it on a statewide ballot, and a vote of the people would have to occur. But as you know, that would be devastating to some public school advocates and school district folks say, because they would have to figure out where to make up that funding. He also is advocating tight caps on appraisals and the ability of voters to actually have a referendum to abolish or lower property tax rates. So it's a pretty aggressive plan that he has.
Does this plan to eliminate school property taxes, how does that fit into his sort of wider stance on changing up the way that schools are funded and what we mean by a public school with the implementation of education savings accounts and that sort of thing?
That's a great point, Laura. I think the governor has this grand vision, although he hasn't shared all of it. But if you look at what he's been pushing for since he's been governor, especially in the past 4 to 6 years, it's been reimagining public education. And, you know, you mentioned the voucher plan, which has these education savings accounts that allow students to use public dollars to attend private schools. He's been really tough on funding in terms of giving public school districts and public school advocates what they want in terms of funding. And so he wants to reimagine public education. And I think part of that is reimagining how it's funded and taking away the reliance on property taxes, which he points out, you know, the school funding is the largest portion of a Texas resident's property taxes.
Well, Texans just approved a lot of property tax relief as part of the constitutional amendments that were on the last ballot. And it's true that those go on top of what the Texas legislature did this past session. Is that right?
Yeah, so if you look at it, you know, $51 billion over the next 2 years. And remember in 2023, there was $18 billion in tax relief provided, which at the time they touted as a historic move. Abbott and Republicans complain, however, that if you have a home and your appraisals shoot up, that relief doesn't mean much because you have to pay more in taxes. Or again, the ability of local jurisdictions to raise taxes or that sort of thing, which would wipe out any relief you get because maybe of a homestead exemption increase or something like that. And so you see the fight brewing, Laura. Will local authorities from here on out be able to manage and determine what kind of tax Republicans in the legislature favor this, be able to set these parameters on how local jurisdictions can raise their taxes.
Yeah, I was going to ask about that because we touched a little bit on the school district's concerns, but local entities as well rely on these property taxes. Have we heard from local governments about feeling hamstringed in their ability to provide public safety or infrastructure services, or not really, not yet?
If you ask a local official about what they want out of the legislature, the answer is almost invariably just to leave us alone. And they've always feared that this day was coming when the Texas legislature and the governor would try to impact the amount of revenue they can collect. Because when you look at basic services, trash collection, street repairs, sewers, all of that, public safety, that's done on a local level. And it costs money. And if your ability to raise tax revenue is mitigated by laws that the state now implements, or if you have to worry about 15% of registered voters, as Abbott's plan outlines, could actually have a referendum to lower or roll back property taxes, then that's a problem. And that's something that you would have to worry about and navigate, not just 1 year, but it would be pressure on you all the time because voters would be able to do that.
Gromer Jeffers covers politics for the Dallas Morning News. Gromer, thanks again.
Thanks, Laura. Always good to be with you.
Support for Texas Standard comes from Texas CASA. For a child in foster care, small moments today can have a big impact tomorrow. More on how lending time and support can help make a difference at becomeacasa.org.
10:19 at News 88.7. Let's check on the weather. Here's ABC 13 meteorologist Alita Loresca.
And then overnight, we've got a clear sky, a calm wind, and temperature readings will be crashing. We'll see temperature readings dip into the upper 30s for the first time this fall season. A gradual warm-up ahead for Veterans Day. We'll start off with those temperatures in the upper 30s and then warming into the low 70s. That warming trend continues through the end of the week. I'm ABC 13 meteorologist Alita Loresca for News 88.7.
Hi, I'm Brandon Robbins. And I'm Jeronimo Cortina, host of Party Politics on Houston Public Media. We're inviting you to News and Brews happening February 17th at St. Arnold Brewing Company. Let's have a thoughtful political conversation over great food and cold drinks.
When you donate $60, select your ticket to News and Brews, and you will also get a complimentary pint glass.
Get your ticket today at houstonpublicmedia.org/donate.
See you there.
It's the Texas Standard. I'm Laura Rice. Known for being the leader in wind energy, solar panels are becoming a more common sight across Texas. The same is true across the Midwest, and some farmers are finding advantages in growing food under the panels. The practice is called agrivoltaics. KBIA's Jana Rose Schleiss reports on how the technology is being deployed.
Shortly after 8 a.m. on an August morning, Linda Hetzel is clipping herbs, vegetables, and produce from the vines on her farm north of Kansas City.
Italian parsley, cutting celery, peppers. I'm trying peppers, which you normally think would be only in full sun.
Hetzel's peppers are growing in raised beds and are shaded by 18 solar panels hoisted more than 8 feet off the ground.
There's no blossom budding yet, but the plants look healthy.
This is Hetzel's first growing season experimenting with agrivoltaics. The solar array that powers her home also provides shade as she harvests produce in the Missouri heat.
In this heat, it's really bad. I have to get up at first light because by 10 o'clock stuff wilts.
The potential for solar energy infrastructure to offer a respite from heat for farmers and the food they harvest has been studied over the last few years. While the jury is still out on whether solar energy can be married to the most typical types of farming in the Midwest, such as large-scale row crop production or raising cattle, small-scale produce farmers like Hetzel are finding success. Other
Keep
farmers
right,
across the
and then
Midwest are
turn
asking
right.
whether agrivoltaics can solve another problem: access to land. Increasingly, small-scale farmers
Turn
have
right.
trouble finding land near their metropolitan customers. It's something Kashua Berry thinks about a lot.
Every time I see land space, I'm like, food.
Berry is the farm director at Minnesota-based nonprofit The Food Group. The organization offers a variety of training programs for people who want to learn to grow organic foods sustainably and sell them locally. Over the years, Berry has seen farmers ready to start their businesses only to be stymied by the same challenge: securing a stable place to grow food. Undeveloped land around the Twin Cities can be prohibitively expensive for beginning farmers, and renting leaves them susceptible to changing prices and lease terms. So Berry has taken to brainstorming creative ways to find land for emerging farmers.
My kids make fun of me because they're like, Mommy's probably just thinking about how many tomatoes or how many watermelons can we grow. I'm like, yes, you know me so well.
Berry and the Food Group have partnered with a solar developer to pilot long-term farming leases for the land within a solar array. The project's farmers get to use the space for free, and the solar company gets the land maintained. Something Stacy Peterson says sheep are also especially good at.
These solar companies have created hundreds of thousands of acres that need to be managed across the country. And they need land management and vegetation management, and solar grazers are perfect for that.
Peterson is executive director of the American Solar Grazing Association, an organization working to connect solar developers with shepherds. Over the past few years, sheep grazing amid solar arrays have become an agrivoltaic success story. Whether agrivoltaics can suit other types of agriculture without decreasing productivity of the farm or the power plant is still being studied. But small-scale food farmers in Missouri and Minnesota hope the future is made in the shade. I'm Jana Rose Schleiss.
This story is distributed by Harvest Public Media, a collaboration of public media newsrooms in the Midwest and Great Plains, including the Texas Standard. And you're listening to the Texas Standard. Today, on Veterans Day, we remember the people who have served in the military and fought for their country. And one of those is Frank Maldonado, the son of Mexican immigrants who grew up in Central Texas and went on to become a helicopter pilot in the Vietnam War. On this Veterans Day, Carlos Morales with the Voces Oral History Center has his story.
Frank Maldonado started working at a young age in his hometown of Caldwell, Texas. In the summer heat, he'd pick cotton and chop wood, all to help his family. But he says his parents encouraged their 10 children to strive for more.
My dad and my mom were both from Mexico. Mom and dad didn't have any education, but they made sure that we, and all 10 of us, graduated from high school.
After graduating, Maldonado moved to Austin and started working. Soon, he enlisted in the Army.
Mom was real upset. My dad was honored and also cautious about it.
The elder Maldonado saw his son's military service as a way of proving his commitment to his new country.
He was a U.S. citizen, but he always felt that he was still Mexican until I went to Vietnam. Then he felt that made him a full-fledged citizen.
Maldonado went through training at Fort Knox in Kentucky and at bases in Texas and Alabama. He'd started out as a paratrooper, but soon moved on to working as a helicopter mechanic and then was encouraged to become a pilot. Maldonado landed in Vietnam in 1968. The helicopter he flew was the UH-1, known as the Hue.
It was the most common helicopter in Vietnam. Everybody depended on the UH-1. That's the only way they would get in and out of there.
By one estimate, there were some 40,000 U.S. helicopter pilots during the Vietnam War. It was considered one of the most dangerous jobs. Pilots, Maldonado said, would fly soldiers in and out of the battlefield. They'd take supplies to troops, protect helicopters that were shot down, and rescue injured soldiers.
Our war was the helicopter war.
Maldonado later left the Army, but he served in the Texas National Guard, and he used the GI Bill to get a degree in math. He taught middle school and high school in Austin. And then he worked at Austin's old Bergstrom Airport and helped plan a new airport.
And I figured it all to Vietnam. I hadn't been a pilot. I hadn't got an education. So tell me what I'd be doing.
When it comes to the war, Maldonado's views are complicated. He appreciates the life the military made for him, but he also feels a deep sympathy for the Vietnamese people.
You just realize we shouldn't be that way. We messed up that country, no telling how much damage is still there.
Before he left for Vietnam, Maldonado's mother gave him a prayer card for San Martin de Porres, a Catholic saint known for helping the underprivileged.
Please mind the speed.
Maldonado says it was San Martin that brought him home. And in some ways, the saint charted the path Maldonado would take after his retirement.
I went back to school and got certified as a paralegal, and I volunteered for the Equal Justice Center, and I did that for 10 more years.
Maldonado worked some 20 to 30 hours a week, speaking with undocumented people, low-wage workers, before meeting with lawyers to determine how they could help.
And if I could get around, I'd even do it again. And true, that's my mom. When they didn't have nothing, still gave.
And that, Maldonado says, is what made him who he is today. A man who gives. It's what he did for his family, his community, and his country. For the Voices Oral History Center at UT Austin's Moody College of Communication and the College of Liberal Arts, Carlos Morales.
Support for Texas Standard comes from Half Price Books, a Texas-bred new and used bookstore, proudly supporting public media in its role in informing our communities. Store locations, staff picks, and more at hpb.com.
Hey, what's cooking? Make sure to join us as we check in with Texas's top taco journalists to hear about the latest innovation stories and the people behind many a Texan's favorite go-to. It's Mondo Rayo with the Tacos of Texas, Thursday on the Texas Standard.
You're listening to News 88.7.
Justinian Wong's new novel is about how the survival of a patriarchy rests on the shoulders of women. Wong says he drew inspiration from the women in his own life.
As I wrote this book, I fell back in love with my mom because I was like, she's brilliant.
I'm Elsa Chang. More on the new book, Lucky Seed, All Things Considered, from NPR News.
You can hear All Things Considered coming up today. It's on 3 o'clock.
Support comes from Clarion at Brazosport College, presenting jazz clarinetist Anna Cohen with Porticino, November 21st at 7:30 p.m. Tickets and more information at brazosport.edu/Clarion.
Support comes from Central Market, offering appetizers, party platters, baked brie, and more for holiday entertaining. Chef-prepared items are ready to serve or heat and eat. More at centralmarket.com.
From the Texas Newsroom, I'm Alexandra Hart. It's been nearly a week since Houston voters chose the top two candidates in the special election to fill out the term of late Congressman Sylvester Turner. Houston Public Media's Andrew Schneider explains why Governor Greg Abbott has yet to schedule the runoff for Texas's 18th congressional district.
Abbott is constrained as to when he can call the runoff by both federal and state election law, according to the University of Houston Law Center professor David Frumkin.
State election code requires that the runoff be held between 70 and 77 days, or in other words, between 10 and 11 weeks after the final canvass of the election.
Harris County expects to canvass the results of the election on Thursday. The state election code requires that the runoff take place on a Saturday, which effectively requires the Secretary of State set the date for January 24th. The runoff candidates are acting Harris County Attorney Christian Menefee and former Houston City Council member Amanda Edwards, both Democrats.
Texas plans to cut Medicaid rates for dozens of medical supply services like ventilators, feeding tubes, and mobility aids. KERA's Abigail Ruman reports providers from across the state spent hours Monday urging the state to reconsider.
Medical supply providers say the reimbursement rate cuts proposed by the Texas Health and Human Services Commission could limit what they can offer and may lead to closures. Stephen Figuerito's son uses a feeding tube. He says it feels like the state is trying to determine how little it can pay people providing critical services.
That's not necessarily a good public policy. These are real people that are affected.
The service utilized by Vigorito's son is facing a 44% reimbursement rate decrease. Some rates could decrease by up to 85%. I'm Abigail Ruman in Dallas.
Governor Greg Abbott has ordered an investigation into Texas Southern University over allegations of financial mismanagement. Houston Public Media's Rob Salinas has details.
The order comes after State Auditor Lisa Collier detailed incidents across several areas. She says the university has not kept up with physical inventories of its assets. The preliminary report also finds hundreds of invoices awarded prior to receiving approval and many invoices awarded to vendors with expired contracts.
TSU issued a statement saying many of those problems have already been addressed and will meet with the auditor later this week. Some Texans have started receiving supplemental nutrition program benefits again in the midst of the shutdown. November's payout was delayed for more than a week. The Texas Tribune reports that some Texas enrollees have gotten 65% of a typical month's allotment from SNAP. Others have received less. I'm Alexandra Hart from the Texas Newsroom.
Support for these Texas headlines comes from Aspire Allergy and Sinus, providing same-day results and custom treatment plans to tackle allergies at the root of the problem. Over 40 locations throughout Texas. More info at aspireallergy.com.
33 minutes past the hour, Texas Standard Time. I'm Angela Kocherga. Some of the families who lost children in the floods that swept through the Texas Hill Country on the 4th of July have filed a lawsuit against Camp Mystic. That's one of the summer camps along the Guadalupe River that flooded. Joining us now to tell us more is Ruth Graham, a reporter for the New York Times based in Dallas. Ruth, welcome to the Texas Standard.
Thank you.
2 counselors and 25 girls at Camp Mystic died during the flooding. Are all of the families who lost loved ones involved in this lawsuit?
They are not. The main suit filed yesterday includes the parents of 5 of the girls and the 2 counselors who died. And then there was a separate suit filed around the same time by the parents of another girl. So that is, 7 families so far? Or sorry, 8 families involved so far.
Well, what does the lawsuit, this one, claim about how Camp Mystic staff reacted to the heavy rains on the 4th of July?
Right. So the suit really describes, first of all, just saying it should have been entirely preventable from the start, that the camp knew these cabins were at risk of flooding and had no meaningful evacuation plans. But then it also lays out an account of those early morning hours on July 4th. And says that the camp directors, or executive director Dick Eastland, who died that night, and then his son Edward, who directed the campsite that flooded, squandered more than an hour after receiving the initial warning about flash flooding from the National Weather Service that came in about 1:15 in the morning. So the suit says that Dick and Edward Eastland wasted more than an hour. They convened the grounds crew to secure equipment, but still did not move to make any evacuations. They didn't check on the cabins yet. At one point, they sort of minimized a warning. Counselors came in to say, there's water pouring into one of these cabins. They told the girls to stay put. So really kicked into gear much too late to make a difference. That the cabins that lost girls, that was entirely preventable if they had moved more quickly after those initial flood warnings.
We'll just remind people, Dick Eastland, he died in that flood. We're trying to save some of those campers, and he is named in that lawsuit.
That's right. And, his actions that night, and, he did die trying to take girls from Bubble Inn over to the recreation hall, where a number of cabins, girls and counselors had made their way over there and were safe on the 2nd floor of the recreation hall. And so Dick and Edward were both using vehicles to, try to transport more girls over there. And Dick was washed away with some of the girls from Bubble Inn. And the suit says, it's difficult, but that driving in water as high as it was at that time, goes against expert advice on navigating floods safely. So it's very difficult stuff, and obviously people making really hard decisions in a chaotic moment.
These families questioning those decisions on the risk of well, what kind of damages are the families asking?
There's not a hard amount, but they are asking for actual and punitive damages is the language. So, we'll see how it makes its way forward. But they are asking for it to be a substantial amount of money, I would say.
Well, you mentioned there are some lawsuits already in the works, and there's this one. Are there more of these kinds of lawsuits expected from other families who lost children in the flood?
Well, nothing else has been filed yet, but I would say we definitely have our eye on that, going forward.
And what else would you want to say about how this is unfolding? Of course, we've heard that Camp Mystic wants to reopen during the next summer.
That's right. I mean, they have announced that, and so that's a sort of second location. They have two campuses very nearby, and so they're not reopening the original campus where the girls were lost, but they're opening the nearby Cypress Lake location. There's also an ongoing, or I should say the state legislature has announced that they will be conducting an investigation of the flooding, including how the flooding was handled at Camp Mystic. So we'll have our eye on that as well. But in the meantime, yes, at this point, Mystic has announced that they will be operating camp next summer. Families are, I think, starting to sign up at this point.
We've been speaking to Ruth Graham, a reporter for the New York Times based in Dallas, and we'll have a link to more of her reporting over at texasstandard.org. Ruth, thanks again for your time.
Thank you.
Go straight on.
Support for Texas Standard comes from Texas Mutual Insurance Company, a workers' compensation provider committed to rewarding policyholders who keep their workers safe and losses low. More at texasmutual.com/TXM Advantage. Support for Texas Standard comes from Texas Realtors, helping those property owners interested in maintaining rentals. Connect with realtors experienced in negotiating leases, understanding tenant needs, and managing repairs. More at texasrealestate.com.
You're listening to News 88.7.
You can't tackle life's big challenges if you let the little ones get you down. That's why Houston Matters devotes the first Monday of each month to a sort of group moan session we call Houstonian Pet Peeves. It's a communal, cathartic experience, but not everyone can join us live at 9 a.m., and not every peeve occurs to you right then and there. That's okay. We welcome your gripes about life in Houston anytime at talk@HoustonMatters.org.
Houston Public Media, in partnership with Texas Southern University, brings to you The Vibe, R&B, hip-hop, and neo-soul, music that resonates with all ages. The Vibe on 88.7 HD3 and on the Houston Public Media app.
Support comes from the Grand 1894 Opera House, presenting Jazz at Lincoln Center Orchestra with Wynton Marsalis on Friday, November 14th at 8 p.m., featuring the music of Duke Ellington, Benny Goodman, and more. TheGrand.com.
It's the Texas Standard. I'm Laura Rice. A San Antonio cafe that hires individuals with disabilities has been serving customers since May. TPR's Jackie Velez spoke with the Mermaid Cafe's founder, Leah Meyer, who lives with Down syndrome, and her mother, Karen, on Leah's dream becoming a reality.
Visitors to the Mermaid Cafe are welcomed by calming aqua and pink colors and the aroma of fresh coffee and gluten-free baked goods. The dream that once spilled out onto the Myers kitchen floor when Leah was a child has blossomed into Leah's dream of owning the cafe. Karen Myers says the journey to establishing the Mermaid Cafe is more than they ever imagined.
We have lots of families that come in that have a child with a disability, and they come in and they just want to just sit for a minute and just take it all in, and they come in maybe just to support us, and then they come back for that hope because they watch our employees and they just kind of get that sense that there's more down the road for their own child.
Leah Meyer couldn't be happier.
I feel great, really. I feel great. It's hard to get up, and I'm very much happy, very much.
Cody Murray, who is on the autism spectrum, is one of the Mermaid Cafe's employees. His job consists of serving drink orders.
I pick up baked goods, whatever they ordered, and deliver just to the tables. Best part for me is working with coworkers.
The Mermaid Cafe hasn't been open for a year and is already garnering awards. Karen Meyer explains.
We won the Lex Frieden Award for small business.
That was at Morgan's.
It was for hiring those with disabilities in the whole state of Texas. Yeah, it was a great honor just to be among all these different employers, large businesses and nonprofits, and we were one of the businesses chosen.
Customer Wanda Levy and her husband Kenneth Levy enjoyed their first time at the Mermaid Cafe.
We live around here, so we had seen it going up and came in. It's very pleasant. It's quiet. It's not like crazy noisy. It's beautifully decorated. We had heard that it was the daughter that had a disability that the parents were helping her get started. And so we had heard about that. So that's why we wanted to come originally.
Karen and Leah Meyer say Taylor Swift's themed cake pops are a favorite.
You gotta
We
stay
made
with
it.
the trends.
We made it.
They were showgirl cake pops.
They were showgirl. It was orange.
Orange and green.
Orange and green.
The color of the showgirl.
One of Leah's favorites is the La La Latte.
So when she was younger and one of our babysitters, they decided to take the kids to the coffee shop all the time because they were in college. And so Leah would get a vanilla latte with 1 pump vanilla because we didn't want it to be too sweet. And she couldn't quite pronounce vanilla, and so she would say La La Latte.
The aroma from the coffee was too good not to try, so I asked Leah's father, Drew Meyer, to make me a cappuccino. That's really good. As I enjoyed my cappuccino, I noticed a pink neon sign in the back of the cafe that says, I am enough. Something Leah's parents have always instilled in her, and that customers can be reminded of themselves. I'm Jackie Velez in San Antonio.
There's a drag queen known as Lady Camacho who is a beacon of light for the LGBTQ plus community along the border. But before becoming a performer, Moroni de Anda had to learn about himself. Sophia Sierra put together this story for the Next Generation Radio project.
Every single day that I do drag, it's a party for me. Like, oh man, let's put some music on, let's get the margaritas out, we're gonna get dressed up, dolled up. Hi, my name is Moroni de Anda. I'm also known as the drag artist La de Camacho, located here in El Paso, Texas, / Ciudad Juárez, Chihuahua, Mexico. I am 35 years old. I was born and raised in Chicago, Illinois. We're a big family. There's 9 of us. I mean, we're Mormons, so that kind of gives you the idea. So there's a lot of drama there. Like, don't touch my stuff. Why did you take my size? That's not your deodorant. My mother was deported in the year 2004. That's when my grandmother took over. She was a custodian of us. She decided to, you guys are going to go to school. You're going to do the chores. She was always a hardcore woman. She was Mexican, Catholic. She actually converted because my uncle to the Mormon church. I remember my first experience of the church. I had a mouth on me. I already knew that. Always getting in trouble because I always speak up. Why do we have to pray right now? How come some people get special privileges, other people don't? You're telling the girls, why are you wearing a skirt that? No. I went to Hubbard High School in Chicago on the south side. My freshman year, I hung around a lot of bisexual people. It wasn't until I was like a senior when I was hopefully saying that I'm homosexual. I was in the ROTC program in high school. I ended up getting a scholarship to Wentworth Military Academy. And this is in Missouri, where you graduate and commission into the Army. I was a military person, like with my back straight, stomach and chest out, shoulders back, stuff like that. I got in touch with my masculinity, but I also learned about my femininity at some point there. So while I was 8 months away from leaving the Army, I found drag. I went to go see a show in Chicago and I loved it. I loved it so much. That's where I met Venus Garanji. Shout out to my sister. She kind of took me and like showed me everything. She's like, "Can you get my zipper?" And I'm like, "I don't know how to do a bra. Like, come on, I'm a guy." I wanted to do drag so bad just because I loved it. And I remember I used to have my Walmart duffel bag just because I had my clothes in there. So like I used to put like the pinkest like sparkly heels all the way in the bottom with the wig and like shoved it, and I'll put underwear on top of it. And I'll leave this in the gym area of the 205th Air Support Medical Company. I'm a New Year queen. So what that means is that you start dragging New Year's. You're a Halloween queen, you started in Halloween, or you're a Christmas queen, you did it in Christmas. So I'm a New Year's queen. One of my Samoan friends had called me because my last name is Deanda. She just came out to me, she was like, Didi. And I was like, I kind of like that. And then Camacho, one of my friends from high school, and I kind of like adapted her last name. So I told her Didi Camacho. And then I'm just going to take a little bit of the hairspray. I want to. That's a drag sound right there. Let me get that makeup in. So we're here, we're in Ciudad Juárez. We're here in la 16 de septiembre. And then we're doing, we're going to the bar to bar where we're performing tonight. Shows at midnight. It's a little loud, so just be careful. I'm a seasoned queen. I'm gonna do drag until I die. I'm not stopping. I'm a lifer. I might be have a leg broken, but I'm still gonna be there on the stage with a wheelchair.
That was Moroni Deanda, who performs on both sides of the U.S.-Mexico border as the drag queen La Dede Camacho. Sophia Sierra put together this story for the Next Generation Radio Project.
Support for Texas Standard comes from HEB and the My HEB app, which is available for download, and shopping fresh departments like seafood, produce, bakery, and deli, and scheduling curbside pickup or home delivery. More at HEB.com.
It's 10:49. This is News 88.7. I'm Tom Carter, and let's check in now with Frank Billingsley, getting ready for Hello Houston coming up at 11 on this Veterans Day.
Good morning, Tom. So you know the Senate passed a bill to reopen the government. It sent it to the House. The House is off today because of Veterans Day, but we'll still talk about the longest shutdown in history, and we want your thoughts on that. Dr. Sarah Nadim is an endocrinologist who's going to discuss these weight loss drugs and President Trump's plan to lower the cost. See how that will go. Local jazz drummer Graham Francis, he's going to tell us about the opening of Houston's new jazz club, Doc's Houston, one of the largest in the country, if not the largest. So that's exciting. President Trump has proposed this idea of a 50-year mortgage. Well, let's talk about it. So that'll come up for sure. Noah Cardenas, Senior Vice President, CEO of Memorial Hermann, is going to talk about how he served our country by opening hospitals. And then, have you heard of Amazing Place? They do so much good work with dementia and Alzheimer's patients. That's at 11.
This is the Texas Standard. I'm Angela Kocherga. A new draft plan from TxDOT says the state needs more public transit to manage Texas's projected growth. We're talking about 9 million new Texans by 2050. And the biggest need is in rural areas and small cities and towns. The report says high-speed rail between major cities should also be part of the mix. The plan is the first of its kind from the agency responsible for building the state's massive highway network. Joshua Fector is a Dallas-based urban affairs reporter for the Texas Tribune. Joshua, welcome.
Thanks for having me.
Well, this draft plan from TxDOT talks about a number of transit needs in the state. What are the broad outlines, and where do the planners say the need is greatest?
The need is everywhere. It encompasses, our major urban areas encompassed by the Texas Triangle. That is, Dallas, Fort Worth, Houston, San Antonio, New Braunfels with Austin, Round Rock caught between San Antonio and Dallas. Most of the state's projected population growth is going to be there. There's, this acknowledged need for different ways to travel between the 3 or 4 biggest economies in the state. At the same time, our sprawl patterns are making it so that a lot of places that used to be rural areas now are denser. They've got more people living there, and so their transit needs are growing. And at the same time, you have rural areas an increasing need of increased transit because of the aging populace and also the rising cost of owning a car. So the need is all over the place.
Well, this is a really unusual step for TxDOT. I think you used the word stunning in your story. Why is transit suddenly on the agenda of an agency that once simply was called the Highway Department?
So TxDOT has been sort of teetering towards, sort of acknowledging the state's transit needs for a while, whether that's sort of, public transit or as, we think about it with like buses that get you from point A to point B in the city, or something that is like intercity rail. And, the need is just coming about because, they're hearing this from constituents who are, sort of weighing in on their long-term transportation planning. They're hearing that from folks, and they're also, seeing the growth and looking at that and comparing it to the state's growth in highway capacity. It's basically an acknowledgement that even though the state spends a ton on roads, it's slated to spend about $146 billion over the next 10 years to maintain and expand the existing highway system. Like basically that capacity can't grow fast enough to meet the population demand.
Well, and you mentioned that the plan also focuses a lot on the Texas Triangle. That's the long-distance transit along the Houston, San Antonio, and DFW corridor. That's where 80% of Texans are eventually expected to live. Does the plan advocate for the kind of high-speed rail that's been talked about for so long, or is there some other plan?
Well, high-speed rail could theoretically be part of it. Obviously, between Dallas and Houston, Texas Central, that route has been, long gestating. It is something that has been kind of, in the background. But at the same time, like, Dallas and Houston just straight up don't have any rail service between them. So you could see some kind of intercity rail between the two corridors. That would be something that is sort of mentioned in the plan. Austin to San Antonio have, long sort of, I guess, fantasized about having some kind of increased rail service there. That might look more just like boosted Amtrak service between Austin and San Antonio. So there's a range of options that they're looking at here.
That TxDOT plan includes data about the positive impact of more public transit on the economy. Specifically in Austin, the capital city has a single light rail line. Tell us about that.
Austin has the Red Line, which goes from, it's a heavy commuter rail line that goes from downtown Austin to the suburb of Leander. And, TxDOT, looked at that and sort of touted the, economic benefits of that. That's part of kind of like what the case they're making here is that not only does transit sort of get you around and, give you better access and that sort of thing, or at least gives people more options to get around, so perhaps they're not clogging up freeways, but they're also trying to sell folks on the economic benefits of that. And sort of their analysis that they did was after the line opened in 2010, you saw a 62% boost in jobs within a quarter mile of the line and 154% increase in high-paying jobs. So this is part of sort of the case that they're trying to make for like the economic benefits of public transit as well.
Well, we know that highways are expensive, but so is public transit. Is there anything in the plan about how the state would pay for more transit?
So this is the tricky part. Texas lawmakers have, over the years, basically tried to thwart in a number of ways, like ideas to allow people to get around without cars, essentially. They have, thrown, hurdles up against Texas Central, which is the Houston to Dallas line, or high-speed rail line that's long been sort of gestating, right? They've also, they've tried to pass things to thwart Austin's public transit expansion known as Project Connect. That's a real hurdle for the state. If this plan needs to be enacted, then, where's the funding going to come from is sort of the big question here.
Well, you spoke to some members of the legislature and some transit advocates. What were their reactions?
They were surprised. They were surprised to hear that this report existed in a lot of cases. They were also, some of them were pleasantly surprised. I spoke to Chairman Robert Nichols, who's a longtime Republican chair of the Senate Transportation Committee, who's not seeking re-election, and he told me, we need everything when it comes to transit, but the big barrier is going to be how exactly the state would pay for that if lawmakers wanted to get behind it. Part of the trouble is that in our state constitution, Texas is mandated to spend most of the money that the state spends on transportation is supposed to be spent on roads. So they have to figure out a way to sort of crack that or find another revenue source in order to do that. And to do that, you'd have to probably do a constitutional amendment election, which means you'd have to get a majority of the legislature, bipartisan majorities most likely, in order to get that on the ballot, and then a majority of Texans to sign off on it in order for that to have a consistent funding stream.
Joshua Fector covers urban affairs, including transportation, for the Texas Tribune, and we'll link to his latest at texasstandard.org. Josh, thank you so much.
Thanks so much for having me.
We're out of time for today's program, but you can keep up with the news 24/7 at texasstandard.org. Our producers and reporters include Sarah Ash, Shelley Brisbane, Michael Marks, and Sean Saldana. Our digital producer is Raul Alonso. Leah Scarpelli is our director, and Casey Cheek is our technical director. Gabriel Munoz is managing editor, and Laura Rice is managing producer. Rhonda Fanning is executive producer of the Texas Standard. From all of us, thanks for listening. I'm Angela Gutierrez, wishing you the very best from El Paso.
Philanthropic support to Texas Standard comes from Casey and Scott O'Hare, the Winkler Family Foundation, Lynn Dobson and Greg Wooldridge, Adrian Killam, and the George Huntington family.
To do in my music is just tell the truth.
Who am I really? Get into the minds of some of the world's most creative people, totally exploring their ideas.
Yeah, I'm going to tell you everything.
The Arts Hour brings you the finest arts and culture conversation from across the BBC and beyond.
It's the variety. That's the world that interests me.
The Arts Hour from the BBC.
Fridays at 9 p.m. on News 88.7. Support comes from Children's Museum of Houston, presenting Faithful Friends, an exhibit exploring understanding and friendship, where kids discover that while faiths and beliefs may differ, kindness and friendship are universal. More at cmhouston.org.
Sunny Veterans Day today. We'll get up to around 73, and tonight mostly clear, low near 57 degrees. Currently we have a beautiful day, 67. This is your NPR station, KUHF, Houston News 88.7, a service of the University of Houston. It's 11 o'clock.
Welcome to Hello Houston. Coming up this hour, the Senate has passed a bill to reopen the government after the longest shutdown in U.S. history. We'll discuss this and more on today's top stories. I'm Frank Billingsley.
And I'm Celeste Diaz-Sherman. We'll also be joined by Dr. Sarah Nadeem, endocrinologist and assistant professor at Baylor College of Medicine, who will discuss weight loss drugs and President Trump's plan to lower the cost.
Plus, we'll also chat with local jazz drummer Graham Francis, who will tell us all about the opening of Houston's new jazz club, Doc's Houston.
Also, we want to hear from you. Give us a call or send us a text at 713-440-8870 or email us at talk@hellohouston.org. You can also watch us on YouTube by going to houstonpublicmedia.org.
All this and more here on Hello Houston, right after the news from NPR and News 88.7.
Hello Houston is made possible in part by founding sponsors John Bradshaw and Kathy Sanders, and by gifts from listeners like you.
Live from NPR News, I'm Lakshmi Singh.
This land is your land.
Veterans Day. As events commemorate the occasion across the country, one of the most prominent is the wreath-laying ceremony at Arlington National Cemetery. Keeping with an annual tradition, President Trump is addressing an audience gathered to pay tribute to all who have worn a military uniform. The impact of a federal government shutdown continues. Even though the Senate voted 60-40 to end it, the House of Representatives still needs to pass the measure, and President Trump needs to sign it. But the federal government could open within days. Here's NPR's Sam Greenglass.
The Senate passed a stopgap funding bill lasting through January 30th after a more than month-long impasse that resulted in missed paychecks for federal workers, delayed food assistance, and air travel disruptions. The package includes a trio of regular appropriations bills funding some parts of the government through next September, as well as language to reverse the shutdown firings of federal employees and ensure that federal workers get back pay. But the deal does not include an extension of expiring subsidies for health insurance premiums. Democrats have been promised a Senate vote on legislation to address the health care subsidies, but that does not guarantee it'll pass or get a vote in the House. Sam Greenglass, NPR News, Washington.
Romania, a member of NATO, is accusing Russia of another incursion into Romanian airspace. The Defense Ministry says it found drone fragments on its soil following Russia's overnight attack on Ukraine's Danube river ports. The government says the fragments landed in an uninhabited area.
Straight on.
NATO member Poland also protested a similar Russian drone incursion of its territory 2 months ago. Poland and Romania are now deploying the new American Merom system to identify and counter drones. Yemen's Houthi rebels have sent a letter to Gaza's Hamas. The Houthis indicate they've halted their attacks on Israel and on Red Sea shipping routes. That's as long as a shaky ceasefire holds in Gaza. NPR's Lauren Frere reports from Tel Aviv.
Hamas's armed wing has published a letter online that it says it received from the Houthis. In it, the rebels say they're closely monitoring developments and threaten to return to military operations if the, quote, enemy, Israel, resumes its, quote, aggression against Gaza. The letter signed by the Houthi military's chief of staff. During the Gaza war, Houthi attacks sank ships, killed mariners, and disrupted global supply routes through the Red Sea and Suez Canal. The U.S. and Israel have bombed Houthi targets in Yemen in response. But the Houthis have not claimed responsibility for any attacks in more than a month. This letter is their clearest indication yet that the pause is in coordination with the Gaza ceasefire. Lauren Frere, NPR News, Tel Aviv.
At last check on Wall Street, the Dow is up nearly 300 points. This is NPR News.
Live from News 88.7 in Houston, I'm Alexandra Hart. The families of 7 campers and 2 counselors who died during the devastating July 4th floods this summer have filed lawsuits against Camp Mystic and its owners. 27 girls and counselors died that night. In total, 3 lawsuits have been filed. They each allege gross negligence and are seeking more than $1 million in damages. The suits claim that the camp chose to house the girls in flood-prone areas, despite the risk, to avoid the cost of relocating the cabins. It also alleges that there wasn't a viable evacuation plan. This is the first legal action taken by victims' families against the camp since the tragedy occurred. The 99-year-old camp is located in Kerr County. In total, over 136 people died in the Hill Country from those floods, at least 18 from the Houston area. Governor Abbott has ordered an investigation into Texas Southern University over allegations of financial mismanagement. News 88.7's Rob Salinas has details.
The order comes after State Auditor Lisa Collier detailed incidents across several areas. She says the university has not kept up with physical inventories of its assets. The preliminary report also finds hundreds of invoices awarded prior to receiving approval, and many invoices awarded to vendors with expired contracts. TSU is also accused of being late with financial reporting for at least the past 2 fiscal years. The university says many of those issues have already been addressed and will meet with Collier later this week to discuss the audit. I'm Rob Salinas, News 88.7.
The Texas education nonprofit Children at Risk says the state schools are improving despite unexpected challenges. The organization released its annual rankings Monday based on student performance, growth, and college readiness. CEO Bob Sanborn says more schools earned A's and B's even when school budgets were frozen by lawmakers.
In spite of all that, we see improvement happening. And just imagine what could happen if our public schools were funded at levels that are happening in other states.
Children at Risk also says more schools earned gold ribbon honors this year compared to last. Those are A and B rated schools with a high percentage of low-income students. I'm Alexandra Hart, News 88.7.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include Progressive Insurance. Progressive is looking for dedicated and forward-thinking individuals to join their growing team. More information, including application, at progressive.com/careers.
open forum on today's biggest stories affecting Houston and beyond. Call now, 713-440-8870. Or let us know your thoughts on today's topics by emailing us at talk@hellohouston.org. Now here's your host for Hello Houston, Ernie Manous, Celestia Sherman, and Frank Billingsley.
2 out of 3.
2 out of 3. Ernie will hopefully be back tomorrow. But welcome to Hello Houston.
Welcome to Hello Houston on a frigid day.
It's chilly, Frank. What's going on out there?
I know. Well, our record for the day, I just looked, was 32 back in 1977. And dropped it. We should have gotten to 35.
Okay.
So not a record morning, but I mean, I think Conroe was at 31 this morning. I know. We're looking at freezing temperatures on this Veterans Day. So
Veterans Day. Happy Veterans to those who have served. We appreciate all the things that you do for our country.
Oh, absolutely. And people confuse it. It's not like Memorial Day, which is for those who we remember and past. But it's for everyone.
Whoever served. You know, I ran the Marine Corps Marathon last year in Washington, D.C., and it was an incredible experience. I would say it might have been that was a top 5 core life highlight. And I remember running, and it's the Marines, they're everywhere, right? And they're all in their uniforms, and they're passing out waters, and it's an extremely organized event, marathon. And I was getting my water at mile 17 or something, and they were like, "Thank you for supporting the Marines, man." And I'm just crying like, "Thank you for your service." I was like, "No, don't think." They were all so just kind and respectful, and there was just so much pride on display during that event, the Marine Corps Marathon. If you're a runner, highly recommend.
Yep.
And again, I will never remember. I was just crying like, "Thank you so much." And it really is emotional. They have a blue mile, it's a couple of miles, and it is families that post a picture of their soldier, fallen soldier, and it is just an incredible experience, and I have just a great respect for those who served. It was very moving.
Marines, Army, Navy,
everyone, all that.
Air Force,
Thank you. I'm clearing my throat for you.
Ernie's calling out sick.
Yeah, we're here and here.
Well, my cold is over, because you know what they say: if you treat a cold, it lasts 7 days. If you don't treat it, it lasts a week. I was going to say, Army, Navy, Marines, Air Force. I'd say 3 dads. My dad that raised me was in the Air Force. He was a lieutenant, and my biological father was also in the Air Force. He was one of the hurricane hunters. How about that? I know.
Really?
When they triangulated storms, they would fly 3 planes, and they wouldn't fly into the storm. They would fly around it, and he was the guy in the back with the telegraph that would send the information. How about that?
That's so interesting.
And then I guess my stepfather, who married my biological mother, was also in the Air Force.
Turn left.
Air Force. Yeah. And it's looked to the Coast Guard. People think, wait, the Coast Guard? Yes, the Coast Guard, absolutely part of our military.
Yeah.
And do a great job defending our shores.
Absolutely.
A lot for us. So happy Veterans Day to all of you out there. It is a beautiful day.
And it is beautiful.
Our YouTubers are already noticing that. That's the first thing they said.
What they tell us.
Beautiful day. Beautiful day. Happy Veterans Day. Beautiful day.
Yes, absolutely. Happy Veterans Day.
Yeah, and they're talking about their jackets and their coats. You look nice in your sweater.
Thank you.
Little
yes,
accents.
Little pearl accents. Yesterday I was chilly. I was chilly all day, and that worries me because I feel like, and I think there's a lot going around right now, and I don't necessarily feel like I have a cold, but I just don't feel 100%.
Is it goldenrods? Is that the name of them? They're kind of like cedar fever. They're really beautiful.
Yes.
But boy, that wind, especially with that front we had, that wind will stir those up right now, and it'll get you. So you might have a cold, you might have allergies. Seems like every time I go to a party, someone that has sniffles will say, "Oh, it's only allergies," and you know what? Bull. It's a cold.
You have a cold.
You just wanted to go to the party.
Well, I don't blame them. I don't blame them. But we have a lot coming up on.
We really do, and everyone's
show.
in studio today. So
we have a packed house.
Yeah, so it's going to be fun.
What do we have coming up, Frank?
Well, Sarah Nadeem is an endocrinologist and assistant professor at Baylor College of Medicine, and she's going to join us to talk about these weight loss drugs, all the GLP-1s, and what you hear Wegovy, Mounjaro.
Yes, which I think is going to be a fascinating conversation because I think it came out right now. It's a lot on everybody's mind because it's weight loss. But these have been around for a very long time.
Right, diabetics have absolutely depended on them.
So,
that's, I think, where they discovered.
Yes.
But we'll find out.
We're
I think
talk to
diabetics were
her.
using them, and they were like, hey, we're losing weight as well. And they thought, this could have another use.
Right.
So anyway, we'll hear about her take on that. And of course, you may have heard that President Trump has a plan to lower those costs.
Right. So
will that really work? Which is kind of crazy in a way, because there's all this talk about premiums doubling, but we're going to lower the price of the weight loss drug, so you can be unhealthy but really skinny. I mean, what's going on here?
Right.
Anyway, she's going to be on house. A lot of other folks too that we will get to, but go ahead, let's jump in.
Yep, the U.S. Senate has passed a bill to end the government shutdown, sending it to the House. This comes on the 41st day of a record-long government shutdown. The Senate voted 60-40 to approve a continuing resolution to reopen the government. The measure would fund much of the government through January 30th and provide funding for some agencies through the end of next September. But before the shutdown can actually end, the U.S. House of Representatives must also pass the legislation, which is not guaranteed before President Donald Trump can sign it into law. 7 Democrats and 1 independent senator voted with nearly every Senate Republican to approve the stopgap funding bill. After a more than month-long impasse resulting in missed paychecks for millions of federal workers, delayed food assistance benefits, and air travel disruptions. What do you think of the shutdown coming to an end? Did the Democrats cave, or did their fight get their point across? Now is the time to join us on Hello Houston. You can give us a call, send us a text, 713-440-8870.
You know, I don't know what to make of this. Of the 8 Democrats that voted with the Republicans, 2 of them are retired.
Get ready to turn right.
And the other 6 are not up for election next year. So by the time they are up for election, everyone will have forgotten this.
Yes, Brandon Rottinghouse noted that. We forget very quickly.
So there was very little political risk from these 8, which tells me that because of that, maybe there were other Democrats who were saying, you know what, I can't vote for this. I'm running next year. Right. Or, you know, this is my district has too much at stake here. And politically, I would like to get this over with and get the thing going again and get the government back to normal. But I can't do it. But you can. You know, you're not running again. So you need to take the part. Now, I'm making this up as I go along. I don't really know if that's what happened. But it was kind of like, okay.
Well, I think that's a very interesting point, right? That's a nuance that a lot of people would not recognize. They say that these people just cave and go against their party. But no, it is.
Maybe they felt pressure from other Democrats who wanted to cave but couldn't politically. But you can, because you're not coming back. So you need to go and do this. And they said, well, you know what? Okay, I'll take one of the team.
Right.
Because they did, because it was sudden. It was like, this isn't going to shut down. We're going to be through the end of the year. It's not going to happen.
And then all of a sudden,
oh, these 8 will come with you. And coincidentally, none of these 8 have any political risk involved. So, I think
that's a very valid point. And I'm naturally an optimistic. So I would like to think.
Naturally a cynic.
Right. So I think that we're moving in the right direction. But I think for me, what I'm looking at the end of the day, my question is, what did the shutdown achieve? You know, and I think that we saw that, you know, Democrats had some big wins in the polls. But we just had some, you know, they were moving in that direction where they were getting enough, publicity or getting enough attention, garnering that public support, and then we saw that a lot of people are saying that they caved.
Well, we'll find out. It depends on these premiums and really what happens in December. Because there was this vague promise that the Republicans, although Mike Johnson said he's not going to bring it up, that they would revisit this whole idea of Obamacare premiums that had been cut off. So if they go to the polls in 2026 or even early polls, and they start to see the Democrats really taking over, they're going to have to revisit this because, as you've said, people vote with their wallet.
Yes, absolutely.
Absolutely. And this is a particular case. Now, back to your original point, did this do any good? If you were one of the people who was not getting paid and still having to work, you would be more like putting food on the table versus premiums doubling for some people. You know what? Your kids are hungry. They have whatever that you've promised them coming up, and you have to take care of your family first. And other people that have issues, they come second. So I guess there was that, and of course air traffic. And
this is going to linger. This shutdown is not just a snap of the fingers going to go away.
And they all fly out of DCA, out of Reagan National, and they're the ones that are going. Well,
you know who I think this looks really bad on is Chuck Schumer.
He's going to take the heat, certainly.
The Senate Minority Leader, I think, is going to take the heat on this.
Well, you want to be in charge, you're in charge.
Yeah.
Live by the sword, die by the sword.
Yep. 713-440-8870. You're listening to Hello Houston. You can join us
On this Veterans Day, which the date is?
Today is November 11th, 2025.
11/11. Did you know it's known also as Singles Day? I think it's known in China. Because 11.11. So it's like, if you're single, you're a one, right? It was Elaine Boozler. Elaine, party of one. Elaine, party of one. It's so depressing.
Yeah.
So, but if you're single out there, I hope you have a nice day.
Yes.
It can be tough being single. By the way, I want to tell you this. I spoke to a group last night for cancer survivors, right? And supporters. Anyway, it was a very large church, one of the largest in town.
They let you into church.
I looked everywhere for the Ten Commandments. I couldn't find them anywhere. I did. I was like, well, where do they put them? Are they on the walls? Are they in the church? Are they in the narthex? Are they in the atriums? Where are those Ten Commandments? No, they're in the third grade classroom is where they are. Okay, I'm just going to say that again.
713-440-8870. Barbara from Magnolia is on the line. Barbara, welcome to Hello Houston. What is your comment or question?
I had a comment. A couple of comments. One is that I think that the Democrats had a really tough choice to make because I think that they did accomplish some things, but the question is, did they accomplish enough?
Right.
I know that they say that they're going to continue to fight, and when they feel like that, when they get, when people start getting those premium notices and it actually becomes reality, and then they bring it up again, that they'll have, more force behind the issue and everything.
That's going to give them some leverage for sure.
Yeah. The other comment that I wanted to make is that it takes two to negotiate. And I think in all of the previous, pre-Trump shutdowns, whichever side of Congress is in the minority and the president both want to bring things to an end because they see suffering and they see wasted money and they see, all of the downsides to it. I think in this particular shutdown, they only had one side wanting to negotiate because the president doesn't mind people suffering and he doesn't mind chaos. In fact, he likes chaos.
Seems to.
And so he had no incentive to try to bring things to an end. So it was Democrats basically trying to negotiate and nobody on the other side.
Right. He was building a new ballroom and having Gatsby parties.
Thank you, Barbara, for your call. Let's go to Karen from North Houston. Karen, welcome to Hello Houston. What is your comment or question?
I just wanted to say that my daughter is a federal worker, and it's taken our whole family for her to do this. But also, for instance, in the courthouse, in the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals, the judges, who are the highest paid people, continue to be paid. And every clerk that works for a judge, every person working in the library, every person working there that wasn't under some other kind of outside contract did not get paid. And so the idea that the shutdown does not affect the people who are paid the most is really horrifying to us.
Yeah, it's very unfair. So I guess you're glad they got it fixed, right, Karen?
We're torn on that. We really are torn on that. They need to put the Republicans on record as voting to let the price of health insurance go up exponentially for families. They need to get that publicly record. And maybe this is the way they felt like they could do it. But I don't trust that they care about going on.
Well, we'll find that out. But they definitely need more leverage.
Thank you, Karen. And we stand in solidarity with those federal workers out there that are working.
We're talking about veterans Veterans Day and the sacrifice of our veterans. But federal workers have made a big sacrifice for us in the last 2 months also.
And they continue to show up.
Yes, they continue to show up. They're doing their best. That's why we always say be nice to the TSA people at the airport.
Yes.
And your pilots and your flight attendants, they're miserable too.
Yep. Again, 713-440-8870. William from Galveston. William, welcome to Hello Houston. What's your comment or question?
Thank you. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Well, I really appreciate the discussion. I think it was good that the senators finally decided to open the government again. I think the closure really served no purpose at all except to make clear the lines of division between the two parties dominate our politics. And I think that probably I would give those who cross the aisle vote for the establishment some credit, possibly in addition to the comments that you've already made. They may have been responding to their own constituents, which doesn't happen too often in our federal government these days. We are so divided that standing in opposition and fighting is more important really than serving the Constitution or serving one's constituents or serving the country. And I think that that's the problem we're up against. It's much deeper than this closure, but it's certainly a beautiful symptom that points us in the direction of what's needed in terms of change. You mentioned Chuck Schumer. I think the fact that the government has been dominated by older people on both sides of the aisle is probably not doing us a lot of good. And I hope that people will step forward to bring a different perspective to the Congress. Thank you.
You know, we've talked about this, as Celeste said the other day, common sense. So let's hope that we get some fresh, young voices from people, Republicans and Democrats and Independents, and Green Party, who make sense, who will bring common sense back to the table. At the end of the day, what I'm hearing from our listeners, I think, is that there were lines drawn in the sand. But lines in the sand can get blown away with a good wind. So if they're going to be real lines, they're going to have to be lines that are drawn on cement and that are really in there, and that the Democrats are willing to stand by and say, this is the line that the Republicans crossed, and this is what they continue to cross. If we're going to have any leverage, then we're going to have to continue to push that message.
I also think that, that's such a great example, talking about lines. I also think people and many Americans are looking at this and saying, you know what, for so long the lines have been drawn by politicians about me against you. And I think people are now saying, wait a minute.
Sick of it.
I'm done.
I'm done.
I'm done fighting with my neighbor, but I'm going to actually look at those and hold people.
Because it hasn't gotten me any good.
Right.
And what good has being angry gotten anyone? I mean, I don't.
Truly.
It might make somebody feel better for a moment if they're an angry person, but bickering and arguing and I haven't gotten any checks.
Right.
No, I haven't gotten any benefits. There's a lot of promises that haven't been made.
Right. Definitely know there's zero health benefits.
There's a lot of stress.
Lots of stress.
Yeah.
But coming up on Hello Houston, Dr. Sarah Nadeem, an endocrinologist and assistant professor at Baylor College of Medicine, will join us to discuss weight loss drugs and President Trump's plan to lower the cost. This is News 88.7.
Zamarodi, and our world is changing so fast. On the TED Radio Hour, we invite innovators, researchers, and activists to unpack those changes with us.
Just about all companies are becoming technology companies or technology-enabled companies.
Listen to the TED Radio Hour from NPR every week for conversations that will deepen your understanding of our changing world.
The TED Radio Hour, Tuesdays at 9 p.m. on News 88.7.
On Fresh Air, you'll hear revelations from well-known actors like Zach Galifianakis on the story behind his last name.
It's actually shortened, Terry. My real last name is Galifianakis. That's an exclusive for your show.
Fresh Air, bringing you some of the biggest names in American culture and some of the most difficult to pronounce. Join us.
Fresh Air, weekdays at 8 p.m. on News 88.7.
Support comes from J.P. Morgan Chase, committed to investing in the people of Texas and supporting access access to resources that help foster community and economic growth. More at jpmorganchase.com/communities/Texas.
Support for Houston Public Media comes from DePelchin Children's Center, whose annual holiday project aims to fulfill the wish lists of more than 2,000 children in their care. Info on getting involved is at DePelchinHolidayProject.org.
Support comes from the law firm McFarland PLLC, eminent domain attorneys focused exclusively on representing landowners against the government's taking of private property for public use across the state of Texas. More at McFarlandPLLC.com. Support comes from Houston Habitat for Humanity, helping Houston area veterans, seniors, and families access affordable home repairs. Together, we build hope. Learn more at HoustonHabitat.org/NPR.
Turn left.
And now back to Hello Houston. To comment on any of today's topics, call or text 713-440-8870 or email us at talk@hellohouston.org. Now here's Celestia Sherman and Frank Billingsley.
Last week, President Trump announced his new plan to lower the cost of popular weight loss drugs like Wegovy and Zepbound, making them more affordable for millions of Americans. But there are still questions about how much prices will really drop and who really will benefit from these changes. To help us sort through what this could mean for patients, we're joined by Dr. Sarah Nadeem, an endocrinologist and assistant professor at Baylor College of Medicine. Dr. Nadeem, welcome to Hello Houston.
Hello.
Hi, thank you for having me.
And if you would like to join the conversation, you can give us a call or send us a text at 713-440-8870. Now, Dr. Nadeem, before we jump into the latest on the news side of these weight loss drugs, you are an endocrinologist. You're trained in diabetes, endocrinology, and metabolism, right? So you've been working with GLP-1s way before they were being used for weight loss. Can you just give us a brief, kind of history on GLP-1s and kind of how they've now become this major new weight loss, I don't know if I want to call it protocol, therapy, I don't know, but yes.
Sure, so you're absolutely right. The GLP-1s have been around since about over 20 years or so. So back in 2005, we had the first commercially approved GLP-1, which was called Byetta. It was a twice-a-day injection, and that was the newest diabetes medicine in a while. So for diabetes management, we've had the same old medications for a long time, and this was exciting at that time because this was new, but it was an injection, it was twice a day, and it was expensive.
Is this to treat diabetes 1 or 2?
Two. Type 2 diabetes, yeah. Mm-hmm. So, and then with that, they started working on, once a day, and that was Victoza, which was in 2010. And then they realized it was also causing weight loss, and they studied that more and more. Initially, this was discovered, from a Gila monster. It's a lizard, which can eat 30 to 50 times its weight and, kind of survive on that and stay healthy.
Okay, wait, slow your roll there. Okay, the Gila monster, we've all seen it. It's like on the island or some island or something. Okay, how did the Gila monster play a role in this?
So you see, our bodies do make GLP-1, right? But our bodies make it in the stomach and also some part of the brain, and but it breaks down really quickly in the gut, and so we're seeing it's made in the gut, but it has an effect in the brain, although it's broken down in minutes. So how does that work? So they tried to identify something that's similar to what our body makes, and they found that there was an anglerfish, and it was the Gila monster.
Really?
Wow,
yes.
That's fascinating.
It is interesting. It's like kiss a pig.
So, fast forward us to now. So clearly they're seeing that these drugs, these GLPs are having major effects. How did it go from, I'm a doctor, I'm going to treat diabetes, to now, if you want to look good, you can have it?
Was it the big farm?
Do you cringe a little bit, Dr. Nadeem?
So, I feel obesity, and I believe obesity is a disease. So a lot of times I felt like obesity was treated like, it's your personal failing, kind of...
You're not disciplined enough.
You're not disciplined enough. You should eat better, or you should exercise more. And I've seen so many patients who've been doing that, but their genetics, their lifestyle, it kind of is stacked against them, right? And it's so hard to lose weight. And they discovered that we have kind of like a broken thermostat in people who are overweight or obese. Even if they try really hard, our body actually fights it. They lose some weight, and it tries to bring it back up to that temperature, like that thermostat. So these medications really enable us to kind of get to the root of that and fight against that and help them lose the weight and maintain it in a healthy way. But yes, when I see people who really don't need weight loss and are like normal, healthy weight, BMI, everything, and it's just like, before summer starts, I'm going to drop a few pounds, and they're getting this, not from their physicians or providers, but over the internet. That is where I feel that may actually be harmful.
Sure. And for so long, we've heard elected officials here in the U.S. talking about obesity and it being an endemic and things like that. Do you think GLP-1s, given your knowledge, your experience, and your expertise, knowing that it was being treated for something, we now have seen it come out to be able to treat, like you said, obesity. Do you think it is being used in the right way?
I do think in the majority, yes. In fact, I feel like more people should have access to it. So diabetes and obesity are linked together. They're both metabolic disorders, diabetes type 2. And so when they discover that it's helping the sugars but also causing weight loss, that's when then the Ozempic, Wegovy, Mounjaro, Zepbound came out. So I think it's being used in the majority in a good way. Yes, there is a small segment which doesn't need it, who may not benefit from it.
But you'll always somewhat have, right?
Yes, exactly. With any benefit, right? With the internet, when it came out, there's a lot of good, but there's a little bit of bad as well, right?
Well, and they always say, and it's true, that these GLP-1s should be used with a better diet and exercise.
Absolutely.
And I've been on them for a while, and that is true. And when I do a better job of my eating and my exercising, they work better for me.
Yes.
They basically kind of kill your appetite. I mean, that's sort of the idea.
So
how do they work?
So they work in a couple of different ways. And what they do is they're made in the gut, but they go out, to the nerves in the brain as well. And they act at a region in the brain which makes us feel fuller. So we'll stop eating quicker, right? Because a lot of times if you have obesity, that brain signal is kind of affected, and it doesn't tell you to stop when you're full and you kind of overeat. So that signal kind of gets awakened there. And it also acts on the gut, the stomach, the whole small intestine, large intestine. Slows everything down so you feel full. So
it's longer.
Yes, for longer, yeah. It takes a while for food to kind of move down.
It can also take away your desire for alcohol to some
Yes, and that's what's being studied. So alcohol, smoking, any kind of addiction. So the satiety center in our brain is where, we feel good. Like, so some people binge eat because they feel good about it. It's the same thing. So it kind of numbs that, and that's why they're actually studying it in people where, it's been proposed as a cure for people with alcoholism and other kind of addictions, drug addictions as well.
Well, let me jump in here because you mentioned BMI, and I was saying just the other day,
about this.
I weigh 204 pounds, and I know this because I went to the doctor the other day, and I was horrified. But anyway, and I'm 5'11".
Yes.
I'm obese. I have a BMI of 27, and so you can imagine that this rule that Trump's coming up with, that you have to be a certain threshold, it's going to be pretty easy to get there. If I'm obese, everybody's obese.
Well, Dr. Nadeem,
except the two of you, y'all look great.
I'm not going to tell you how much I weigh on the radio, but to Frank's point, I guess my question would then be, President Trump has now said that he's going to be lowering the cost. GLP-1 medications, including Wegovy and Zepbound, currently list price of more $1,000 for a month-long supply. That is very expensive. Under President Trump's deal, that would bring the price down to on average, about $350, and as low as $50 for those who have a copay. You mentioned that you think more people essentially could benefit from this. Do you think this is the right way to go about it through this type of policy? Do you think this is the right way that we can potentially really help Americans become healthier?
So I think that's a nuanced answer. So multifactorial is how we should be addressing the obesity epidemic. And it has gone down, actually. So there was a peak about 2022 where about 39% of U.S. Citizens were obese adults. Now it's gone down to 37. So it is improving, and it is with the onset of the GLP-1s. So to your question on the BMI is one tool, and it has a lot of faults. It's not a perfect tool because, yes, it only looks at the weight and the height, and that's it.
Go straight on.
Actually, so the Obesity Society is advocating for using more of the waist circumference and other tools, body composition, to get a better idea of, not just the weight.
since prices for medications could go down. This says will go down, but I guess they could. So will more people get approved for the medication? And right now, insurance companies are very strict
with
about the
qualifications.
qualifications. So will those be relaxed a little bit?
Yeah, so that's the positive on this new policy for sure. Like if Medicare has negotiated this lower price, then other insurances will be obligated to kind of come down and kind of not be as strict about it, because even if you meet the criteria and you have obesity with complications like sleep apnea and everything, sometimes your insurance company, there are some insurance companies that blanket don't approve obesity medicines. And I think that's discriminatory and it shouldn't be happening. So we need to, yes, bringing the cost down is great. Even now, people on certain insurances can get Zepbound for a $25 copay. But that's not everybody, right? And then you can also get certain medications direct from Eli Lilly for less amount, like I think it's about $500.
Yes.
Well, and let me follow up on this because, okay, let's say you get this great deal and you're on Zepbound, and 6 months down the road, it worked. You look great. Your glucose is great. Cholesterol's great. You feel good. Can the insurance company now say, all right, we're not going to keep paying for this. You need to come off of it because you no longer qualify?
It shouldn't, but it can, right?
Right.
So from a medical point of view, it shouldn't, because it's just like a blood pressure pill, right? When
you think it's a chronic condition and we should treat it for life?
Which we did get a YouTube question. Is it true that you snap back to your previous weight when you quit taking GLP-1s?
Which is in line with what I was just saying.
Yep.
So not everybody. So the majority of people that have been studied who would come off versus those who have continued on a low-dose maintenance dose will have much of the weight regained. Now, the people who have not regained that weight did make those changes with lifestyle, right? So you have to build more muscle, you have to take more protein, you have to work out. You will lose the weight easily, but if you don't maintain your muscle, you will be the first one to kind of regain it back. But for the majority of obese patients, I would not want to stop it, because if their blood pressure is good on a blood pressure med, I won't stop the blood pressure med. It's the same thing with obesity, right? You go down to the lowest dose, which will maintain them, because obesity, their body is wired that way. And if we take that medicine away, then we're kind of putting them back in the same risks.
So there was even a study that I read about, and I will defer to you as the expert, that it might play some role in helping dementia.
Yes, you were right. You read the right study. They're studying that a lot. It does not have the labeling for it, but yes, and that's where, the central action. So the part we understand is it comes from the gut, and it, after you eat something, even if you took an IV and your blood glucose went high, your incretins, your own body's incretins don't release. But this is from the outside, and there is some effect on the brain. It may preserve brain cells, just the way that it may help preserve the beta cells, which are in the pancreas, which make insulin. So there's that, and it's approved for sleep apnea, separate from weight, and there's probably going to be indications approved soon about addiction as well.
Dr. Nadeem, something that we received an email, and something that I've been thinking about also is age. How young do you think that, I understand, I don't remember exactly, we received an email from a lady who asked about young girls looking at this potentially as something.
The ones on Botox that are 18.
Right.
I know, it's crazy.
What are your thoughts on age limits?
So the FDA has approved it for, the youngest is age 12. But strict criteria. So I think that's where, it's very important that this should still be considered a drug, right? Each drug has benefits and side effects. And I think growing brain also hasn't been studied in, younger adolescents. And to use it as Botox or just another kind of makeup, aesthetic purpose, that's not the purpose of it, right? Because it has a lot of some side effects, and you don't want to kind of have more risk than benefits. Any medicine, any drug, you prescribe it only when you see the good outweighs the harm, right? So in a younger person, and even people with eating disorders, that's where, I think this should be regulated better, because I see it being passed out by med spas, and I don't think that's the responsible way to prescribe it.
I can see someone who has anorexia or bulimia obviously has a body image issue, and this might stave that off and help them before they get to that point.
Yes, in certain situations. So that's where it's nuanced, right? So that's where I feel like an endocrinologist or obesity specialist with a psychiatrist working together. Because there is a little bit of warning that they've seen that semaglutide may increase depression risk as well. So the studies are kind of a little conflicting right now, but that warning is on there. So you have to be careful.
Yeah. Dr. Nadeem, as you sit here, what would you want our listeners to take away and really understand about GLP-1s? I mean, you've said so much wonderful information, but what is there anything that really sticks out to you?
So what I want, the listeners understanding about GLP-1s is GLP-1s or GIP. They are an excellent new medicine which has shown many benefits. There are some side effects also, but it's not an all or none phenomenon. And if your doctor has advised you to be on a GLP-1, I have patients who, will really benefit from it, but they've read something in the media and they're like, I don't need it. So always have a discussion and realize that, the benefits of GLP-1s, if they are higher for you, you should be on it, but under the close guidance of somebody who's been prescribing this, using this for years, has been trained to do this, and don't buy it off the internet, don't buy it from the country, because it can harm you if it's not regulated in the proper way. But I think these are fabulous medications for the people who, it's indicated for people with obesity, sleep apnea, and others.
My nutritionist is who I was seeing at the time is who recommended it for me. And I would think that, like you said, sometimes it takes a psychiatrist to step in. I think if a nutritionist steps in also, it's not just about a medical doctor, but someone who's really studied nutrition that can help guide you to eat properly while you're on these medications. And that is key.
Like a holistic approach to this.
Always. In anything, it's never medicine or nutrition or lifestyle. It's always like nutrition, lifestyle, exercise, and medicine.
Here's a really good question. Can we take this if we're pregnant or breastfeeding? Will it affect the fetus?
So no, we do not advise it to be taken when you're pregnant or breastfeeding because it has not been studied in pregnant or breastfeeding patients. But the caveat there is actually women, they can improve their fertility because if you're obese or overweight, you may not be ovulating and be infertile. So it's actually used quite a bit in people to get their weight down, so that improves their fertility, but it should be stopped before you conceive.
What about men? We could be infertile too.
Yes, but I don't think they've seen a direct connection with men. Yes, but with this, yes.
I was just wondering.
Well, obesity in men does cause low testosterone and may affect the fertility. But so yes, it could be.
The goal is to be healthy all the way around.
All the way around. Yes. Anything else, Dr. Nadeem? You are just a well of knowledge, and I feel like I want to talk so much more about this.
While we're on the subject of diabetes, where does that stand? I have friends that are on it. Some of them can't regulate properly, and they have to take shots 4 times a day. Where's the hope with people who are suffering from diabetes?
So diabetes, I feel like GLP-1s are, the biggest game changer for people with diabetes, and there's a lot of shift in thought that needs to happen, even with physicians, because you can have a perfect blood glucose and be on 4 shots or 5 shots a day of insulin, but that's not decreasing the risk of heart attack or stroke or even protecting your kidneys. And the GLP-1s like Ozempic and retarder will decrease the risk of heart attack, stroke, and protect your kidneys. So every single day, I'm switching people or decreasing their insulin and starting them on Ozempic. Because I'd like to give them like a multiple benefit for one, right? It'll decrease your weight, it'll bring your sugars great, and decrease risk of heart attack and stroke. Because we can decrease the sugars down to perfect with insulin, but most diabetics still have heart attacks and strokes, and that's kind of the serious danger there.
Wow. You are. Thank you so much for all this.
Yes, Dr. Sarah Nadeem is an endocrinologist and assistant professor at Baylor College of Medicine. Dr. Nadeem, thank you for joining us today on Hello Houston.
Thank you so much. A pleasure.
Coming up, we're going to preview the opening of a new jazz club in the heart of Houston. Stay with us as Hello Houston continues. We'll be back after the break.
Your support for Houston Public Media powers the programs you trust and rely on. And your employer may help your contribution go even further. Many employers sponsor matching gift programs, doubling or even tripling employee contributions. It's an easy way to maximize your impact on the programs you rely on. Search for your company and get started today at HoustonPublicMedia.org/match.
I'm David Brown, host of Texas Standard. This year we're turning 10, and we're celebrating at St. Arnold Brewing Company in Houston this Friday, November 14th from 5 to 7. Come join us for live music, good food, and great company with friends from Houston Public Media and Texas Standard. Food and beverage from St. Arnold's full menu will be available for purchase. Plus, Shop Local Market will pop up with Houston artists and talented makers. That's this Friday at St. Arnold Brewing Company. Details at houstonpublicmedia.org/TS10.
Houston Matters highlights the people, places, issues, and ideas that define Greater Houston. And we do it live on the air weekday mornings at 9 on News 88.7. But we know you're not always available then to listen. So subscribe to our podcast wherever you get yours, or find each day's program to stream online at your leisure at houstonpublicmedia.org. And reach out with questions or comments anytime. Email us at talk@houstonmatters.org.
Support for Houston Public Media comes from listeners like you and from the Houston Ballet, presenting Stanton Welch's The Nutcracker. The holiday tradition returns to the Wortham Theater next Friday. Tickets available at houstonballet.org.
Support for Houston Public Media comes from CertaPro Painters, offering residential and commercial painting services, from color consultations to full project management. Estimates and more at CertaPro.com.
And now back to Hello Houston. To get your comment in on any of today's topics, call or text 713-440-8870 or email us at talk@hellohouston.org. And now here's Celestia Sherman and Frank Billingsley.
This